for years, what happened with me was I kept watching like kids die. And I know it's not my fault, but there is this thing where like I'm running to these meetings, to these lunches, to people who they don't even have a thought about the context that I'm in or what, like Nehemiah, like who my heart is actually crying for. Like our walls broke down. You want me to come over to the palace and kick it with you. And I'm not mad at you about it because that's what rocks for your context. But like, you don't realize what's being lost when I leave out of it or whatever and stuff. And so over time, just to protect it, you end up starting to having to like put a little bit of a chip on your shoulder about it. And it's not looking to condemn anybody else for what they're doing. It's just that I can't give you my time to do it because me being in this space, me being around for a conversation with a young man who's going to go kill somebody is important because I've literally stopped people from going to kill somebody, right? Yeah. So it's like you start to like our value here, not because we just it ain't no ego thing on our part. God saved us to stand in this space.
You gotta tell the story, Doc.
Yo, I can't even lie. Y'all showed out on the interview with Pastor Jay, and I told you that if we got a certain number of likes, a certain number of views, that we would drop part 2. I'm a little bit late on putting it out, but I want y'all to enjoy the second half of this interview. Now, make sure you watch the whole thing, because Pastor Jay's going to talk about the Ville Church, the church plant that he gets to pastor, and he also talks about the connection from the Ville Church to Straight and Narrow, the street brand that he started himself, and one that actually kind of pushed him into pastoral ministry. So I'm about to drop the interview right now. You use a great example, man, Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people use that example thinking about church planting. But if you really, really study Nehemiah, you know that Nehemiah and Ezra go together. Yeah. Like it's one book, really. And we've divided it into 2 books for, canonical reasons or whatever. But one thing I like about Nehemiah is it starts with this deep, this deep pain, really. Yeah. He has sorrow because he's called to these people in this context. He sees the context and how it's basically falling apart. Like it's a broken, what they call it, a broken community or whatever. But if you read to the end of Nehemiah, the people are still struggling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you would think the better story would be Nehemiah's heartbroken about what's going on. He goes to the city to rebuild the walls. And at the end of the book, everybody turns to Yahweh and worships him. Yeah. And that's not the end of the story.
Yeah, no.
Like the end of the story shows that he's frustrated. He's still frustrated with the amount of work that he has to do to serve this area. But some people have turned back. Yeah. And he did what God called him to do. Yeah. Which is like one of the most important parts of that. Like, how would you describe that frustration? Because I feel like all of us have had that frustration where it's like, I love this area. I'll never leave it. This is where I know I'm called, but yet it's hard.
Yeah. I identify with it in a deep manner, right? So even with my counselor that I see, my counselor, he'll say, Jay, you have a very, very deep sadness that sits in your soul. And I do.
Yeah.
I have a crazy joy and hope in the Lord too. I look at the promises of God and I'm like, man, one day it's what made me like, okay, he gonna fix this thing.
Yeah.
But the journey that God has put me on puts me so up close to hurt. And you do serve people. You do sit and mentor kids and then watch them go get 25 years.
Yeah.
I sat with a kid not too long ago, watched them get 25 years that I sat and mentored, and then had to go back and go to court with them a week later because his 17-year-old brother that was sitting with me in court had got murdered that week, and go deliver that message. So it's like you can't get drunk off the work thinking you killing something because you never feel like you're winning. You always feel like you're at a deficit. But nevertheless, you feel called.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna save everybody at all. But you have to realize you have no idea how many generations you're affecting with just one person that you deal with. And I think about it like that. I'm like, I don't know what God has for the story of this kid. Like, I got saved on the way to go murder somebody. I didn't.
Wait, say that again.
Yeah, like I had some beef in the street. I caught a bad one.
Yeah.
My pride, we couldn't deal with it, and so I started setting up on cat to go kill him. In the meantime, my girlfriend, which is my wife now, started taking me to church, and I loved what I was hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I still didn't care though. I was like, it's made like I hear you guys sound like you really dope, but this brother got to die. That's how it was in my mind. And God, it horrifies me, but he ended up saving, like he overpowered me. Like it was simply by grace. I didn't have a good heart and want to turn and do none of that. He saved me. From that, I never wanted to be a preacher, but the gospel is so amazing and so and does so much with the wretchedness of the soul. It takes the weak and confounds it with, you know what I'm saying? I can't do nothing but talk about them.
Yeah.
I can't contain it. It ain't that I want to be somebody's preacher or whatever, this and that. But it is what it actually is. And so now I got 10 babies or whatever that they're growing up with a father that's living this lifestyle instead of sitting in a prison cell or dead or whatever, this and that.
Yeah.
Like God has a plan that is beyond our comprehension, and faith compels us to keep moving forward despite what it actually looks like. But here's the thing, and because we believe the scriptures, despite what it looks like, we still know the outcome.
Oh man,
being more than conquerors is not about us winning every single thing we touch. It's that God has ultimately won everything on our behalf.
Yeah,
for real. And so ain't nothing gonna be wasted for us. Period.
Man, that's dope, bro.
Yeah.
You hear so many things. We could be here for like another 2 hours, all that. But man, you legitimately had like a Paul moment. Like you was just like knocked off your horse. And
yes, bro. Look, man, I ain't got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
I don't want nowhere else to go.
And I like the fact that you said, man, you never really dreamed of being a preacher.
No.
It was just like, yo, this is a necessity.
Yeah.
Bro, we know a lot of dudes who are doing this. Isn't that almost all of their story? Like, I feel like more often than not, guys who are serving in an urban context specifically, it's not that they like desperately wanted to be a pastor or a church planter or a preacher. It's that it was like, yo, this Nehemiah, like, yo, if I don't go, who gonna go?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we had that conversation before. Like
I ain't trying to be nobody's hero, but it's like God puts this thing in your soul and you like, I got to go do something.
Yeah. I love that. So man, we talked about the NFT space and your work in nonprofit. And I believe that even though it's a nonprofit that you sit on the board of with EVAC, y'all look EVAC up, by the way.
EVACmovement.com.
EVACmovement.com. So you serve in that space. And I still look at you as serving as a pastor, even in that space, because, you know, the word pastor, we related to teacher and all that type of stuff. But man, it's really about you being a shepherd, and you're shepherding these guys. You're making deep connections with these guys. But you talked about EVAC. You talked kind of a lot about ministry in general. Man, let's talk a little bit more specifically about the Ville Church, how the Ville Church came about, and man, the role that you play in it right now, and what you think is going to happen for the future.
Yeah. So 2010, I started a clothing brand called Straight and Narrow. It grew fairly quick or whatever. Like it's, very much centered in Christian hip hop and everything else. Mm-hmm. 2011, I opened up a retail store, and I had that from 2011 to 2014 on Lower Street in Jacksonville, Florida, in the heart of our downtown. Amazing season, amazing time. It was brick and mortar, dope boutique style. Did Bible studies in it, all kind of just I met everybody in the city. Like it was a brother owning a boutique on the main strip, so I knew everybody. Whatever. Which
is how like most of us know you from Straight and Narrow, from that era.
Yeah, and so I always loved fashion when I was a kid. So I did that, whatever and stuff. And then I met this young man, my man, his name is Matt Jensen, but Matt was from Mars Hill Church in Seattle. I didn't even know what Mars Hill was or whatever. He just walked in my store one day, and he said, from Mars Hill, he said, I'm coming here to possibly play in the church. And he's like, I think you're the other piece to it. And I was like, man, somebody don't get this white boy, man. I was like, I ain't the other piece to nothing, bro. Like, You know, like I was slightly offended. Like I was like, I don't know you, dog.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that kind of thing. It makes me sick. I still tell Matt to this day, I'm like, so mad that you was right, dog.
Shout out to Matt, by the way. I don't know if he'll see this, but
yeah, man. And so I ended up riding around with him talking through the church plan. But I was like, bro, I ain't about to be involved. Like, but I'm going through a church, like, you know, where it should be, all of this stuff for a church that I'm one day gonna actually lead. And so 2014, he started it somewhere in between probably around 2012, something like that or whatever. And you know, I started attending the church. I was really grieved with my old church or whatever, like a lot of theology, a lot of the racist stuff I saw with it. I wasn't really keen with definitely following another white leader or whatever. Me and Matt just connected. It was undeniable. I knew God was doing something there. And so I started going to the church. And it's really his preaching that really did it. And then he probably asked me about 7 or 8 times to jump on staff. I was like, nah, I ain't doing it. Yeah. Told him no every time. And then I was working with an artist with my man, Uncle Reese. And we ended up he worked in the store at one time. And so I ended up producing his first album. And that led to Sony Records giving us a deal. It's my 3rd time having a record label and finally made it up there. And I'm up at Sony and I could hear God clear as day, like, homie, you ain't taking this trip. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm about to get to the bag, Lord. What is you doing? Like, you know what I'm saying?
And then, hey, just to stop, like, this is the time where CHH is like in its prime. Like, so, and I remember Uncle Reese and that Ascent during that time. Yeah. And the single we had was hard. Like, it was playing everywhere. It's still playing.
Yeah, I directed the whole video with my man Juice, Wilbert Thomas from Space Cherry Films. And Juice is, man, this brother's the most amazing, talented dude ever. And Reese was just, you know, he was a homeboy. He worked in the store, but he just had it. Like, period. He used to perform in front of the store, like when we have our little festivals, like 10,000 people in the street, and the whole crowd would just stop. He just was ferocious on stage.
He's like, full of energy, enthusiastic, and he gets you to his place where you are creating a new opportunity. Like, you have a new opportunity in front of you. And you feel like the Lord just like...
Well, I already know. I'm torn. I'm almost a little bit bitter, but like I hear God calling me. Like I heard ministry calling me while I was there or whatever. It was already talking to me, but when I used to be in the store, then my friends used to, they used to say this. They'd be like, yo, Jay. They'd be like, Jay, you're a pastor, bro. It's like, nah, bro, I'm a businessman. Like, that's how I like to fancy myself, the way I thought of myself. And they was like, bro, you lock customers out the door to pray and lay hands on people, bro. Like, businessmen chase the money. You're not that as much as you think, bro. You care more about souls. Yeah. And it would get to the point where, like, I would have parents sometimes, they would just hear about me and they would bring their kids. So I had this couch in the room. I have them sitting in line like the doctor's. I'm like, yo, just sit there. I'll get to you in a minute. And I'm trying to run the store or whatever. Yeah. And so it was overtaking me in ways that, you know, I couldn't even front on or whatever. So anyway, when I came back, I closed the store in October of 2014, November, next month or whatever, I was on staff. Yeah. And then in 2016, Matt ended up leaving, and then they elected me to be the lead pastor. I changed the name of the church from the Image Church to the Ville Church. Yeah. And we've been rocking ever since.
And it's the Ville Church because y'all are in Jacksonville.
Yeah, most definitely.
And when you're from Jacksonville, you live in Jacksonville. That's what you hear. You know, you hear Duval, you hear the Ville. You know, all of that. So
I didn't want no churchy name. Like, I just like, matter of fact, when we had the Image Church, we were across from a homeless shelter, and the cats at the homeless shelter used to come over because we have cookouts all the time. They was like, yeah, the cats over there be like grumbling about the church name because they like, yo, an Image be like what they, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then the white people in our church or whatever, because you got me coming from the street, Matt over here, like we was super diverse. And all the white people was like, yeah, made in the image of God. All the black people in the street was like, nah, be images, man. That's a false idol. That's an image, whatever. So I was like, yo, I'm changing this name ASAP, be like, you killing our street cred right now.
Yeah,
like,
man.
So I switched.
That was one of the dopest things I remember because I hadn't planted yet. I hadn't even started planting. No, I think we had started. But I just remember when y'all changed the name, and I was like, bro, that fits. That's it.
Because, man, a lot of cats, man, they get into like stuff they see in the Bible or, you know, stuff that's like super duper traditional, but it's not stuff that fits their city.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, bro, that's like one of the hardest like church names I've ever seen, you know, and what's crazy is the branding is what really put it over the top with a lot of people.
No, bro, I appreciate that. You know, some of the thinking of it is this right here too. This is what I mean, like the streets sanctify you. Yeah. You take your foot out the streets, you start getting real churchy and weird, right? Cats or whatever, like, you know, no disrespect to like our elders or whatever, because for their season and for their culture it worked. But like, yo, ain't no young cats in the street messing with, you know what I'm saying?
Mount Mission, Missionary Baptist.
Macedonians. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm gonna blank out these names, by the way.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like all, like, you know, like they don't understand what in the world that is. When you're like immersed in church culture, you get it. Yeah. But like the thing is, we done got to a place where we're actually only living to market to other Christians, and our numbers show it. Yeah. All people get is transfer growth. Somebody comes with a new awesome business plan, and everybody runs from all the other churches and join it or whatever. But like, I'm like, I need to make sure a cat in the street. So like, I wanted to give, like, even with our stickers, people who aren't believers walk. You may look on a magazine in our city and see somebody rocking one of our Ville t-shirts. Duval rules everything around me. Like, they get that joint, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Or the Ville, they trying to represent the city. I'm like, yo, we here and we celebrating the city too. Matter of fact, we love it so much. We want to see the gospel in it. So I want to do something that connected. And I try to fight. Just like I preach the gospel to believers to encourage them to keep walking in the Lord. But I'm also preaching outside of the doors all the time.
That's good.
And I'm like, homie, y'all good, bro. We came to save the lost, my G.
And that's good.
And if you're a believer too, then you should be with me on saving the lost. So like, let's fashion everything like we not trying to like just build some kind of organization, but how do we, like, for people who are looking for hope, how do we share the hope of Jesus, whatever? And that needs to be in their language.
All right, I had to stop the interview real quick to just remind you that Pastor J, the EVAC Movement, and DreamCrazyJits are dropping their new NFT this weekend on Juneteenth. If you're watching this after Juneteenth, then the NFT is already dropped. So all you got to do is get whatever your wallet is, your virtual wallet. Make sure you got some ETH in there and go to DreamCrazyJits.com to go ahead and purchase your NFT from DreamCrazyJits. I think he said they have about 250 different designs of it. You can go check them all out at DreamCrazyJits.com. And you can also follow them at DreamCrazyJits. And while you're doing it, follow EVAC Movement, the Ville Church, and Pastor J, Straight and Narrow. All of those things are right at the bottom in the description. Back to the interview.
Hey, I'm with you on that, bro. So I feel like I went too fast because I pushed you to the church route. But man, just from our conversations, it's tell the story, man. So I want people to hear the story about the straight and narrow story.
Yeah.
Because, you know, just from our conversations, that seems to be a period in your life and a period of ministry that was super important, super formative, and in some kind of way, just like a marker that you maybe sometime will want to run back to.
Yeah.
So like, what was that like? Like, I mean, you kind of briefly mentioned it, but like, what was it like having that store, and what type of things did you see Jesus do during that time?
Yeah, you know, it was an amazing season in my life. Not only that, in the life of our city. Like, people till this day, they roll up to me, they're like, bro, that was the funnest time I've ever had in the city. Like, we just, you know, it was a powerful thing to have a store. When I came in the store, whatever, I started like Bible study in the store on Wednesday nights. I maybe had like 3 or 4 people. By the time we finished that joint, people would be outside of the glass door, like leaning in. And it just was real and raw. And like at the time, God was at that time deconstructing and smacking the religiousness up out of me. Because, you know, we you know, when you kind of living in this religious church kind of bubble, you could pop down to the streets and have a couple of little slick little phrases, you know, rebuttals you can run with or whatever. But like the store sat me in the street every day. And it was an injury to my pride. I had lost a lot of my street savvy. I'm just keeping it real. And so I found myself in my dressing room of my store praying often, like, yo, God, your boy been gone too long. And I'm not, this religious game I've learned how to play in the church for so long does not work out here on the street at all. It actually is very unproductive, and it's actually more fit to injure and hurt people than it is for loving them. So one of the things God told me to do was learn how to shut up and stop trying to preach to everybody and just listen to people. And I became a really good listener. And the more I listened, the more people gathered. I listened to homeless people. I got challenged in very peculiar ways because homeless people would always pull up to my store, and we feed them and we take care of them. And they'd be like, Dad, y'all make me feel like I'm one of y'all. I don't got no home to go to or whatever. And they always could figure out a place to stay or go stay in the shelter. But then days came when it was freezing cold outside. And I'm closing up to go home. And now the question is this right here. Jay, is this really your brother, or is this a game you play with him?
Wow.
Because if this is your brother, then he's sleeping inside of the store tonight with the heat on.
Yeah.
Or he's coming home with you, one or the other. So next thing you know, I'm opening up my store. I got people sleeping in my store.
Yeah.
I got people sleeping in the basement downstairs on the couch or whatever. And it didn't always go well. There's times we let people in there destroy the bathroom in it. Then I have to deal with the landlord, and they be like, "We know it's you," because I'm on a block with cats with the little teeth rocked up, all that. They was like, anything went wrong, it was always my fault, right, and whatnot. But so this is what I mean. He began to sanctify me like that.
Yeah.
I learned how to tell cats no, because I thought when you're kind and you're Christian, you say yes to everything.
Right.
I learned how to set boundaries. I learned how to challenge cats or whatever. Like, you ask for money, but you sitting with us every day. I'm at work, dog. Like, like
you need to do something.
Yeah. So okay, let's sit down. We're gonna go through a process, or whatever, and we're gonna get one of my homeboys right now. My man or whatever, he walked by my store years ago. He was walking up the street praying, young cat, asking for God to give him some food. And Reese walked out of the door, said, "Yo, homie, where you headed?" He said, "Yo, I was walking up the street." Said, "Yo, we just ordered pizza. You want some?"
Yeah.
Dude came in the store, never left. We used to get his joint. We used to get his paycheck. Go get a pair of sneakers. Go pay your baby mamas this, whatever. That brother right now is the hardest working cat I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
On his own, like all his old pictures is machine guns, mask, and he in church, he in a choir, whatever. So like learning how to walk the walk with people, you know what I mean? And he stumbled a million times. Some of my brothers like got rid of him because he was just a mess, like, you know what I'm saying? And so, that store, bro, it changed me. Yeah. It changed me a lot, or whatever. It really, It really marks the way I roll as a believer till this day or whatever and stuff.
Man.
And one thing, I didn't think of myself as a pastor then at all. And I really was in a lot of ways kind of hurt from the church or whatever and stuff. And so, but over time, although it worked like for what I dreamed it to be, it worked better than I ever imagined. But it was really missing like being a church and the authority of a church.
Yeah.
That church has in people's lives or whatever. Maybe could accomplish it, but I didn't know what that even was. And I ended up leaving it and going to the church. Now I find myself trying to not get back to it, but trying to bring the church back to what it was. That's where
that's so interesting because like that brings on another set of like, I won't say problems, but like challenges. You know what I mean? Trying to like merge those two things. But you very much feel alive, you know, doing both. Yeah. But one is just kind of more familiar, you know, to you. But I think what I heard in all of that is like, man, you've had to be a pastor to way more people than are on your membership roll.
Most definitely.
So like that's kind of a reality to most guys in the urban context. It's like, you know, I was telling somebody the other day that we have like 30 people on the road, but I'm probably a pastor to about 7,500.
Exactly.
You know, because every day there are people out here that are asking questions and asking for prayer and all that type of stuff. And that's just a reality of what we do. And I think what people in other contexts don't realize is if we remove ourselves from these places, then we don't have the opportunity to pastor those people, to care for those people, or to see some of those people's lives change.
Yeah.
You know, so for a lot of people, it's not a good thing to like pull us out of these contexts.
Yeah.
You know, like you might think it's a noble thing to get us an office across town, or to like buy us a building somewhere else, or maybe not buy us a building because y'all ain't buying us buildings most of the time. But like,
come on,
you know, but you know, like pulling us away from the area instead of trying to figure out how we can maximize being in the area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we are like literally a pastor to the community. And I think that's something that is very unique to many of us that like other pastors and other contexts might not have.
Yeah.
You know,
can I add to that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like you end up people like, sometimes you end up in like in church organizations or relationships where they don't understand. And I think for years, what happened with me was I kept watching like kids die. And I know it's not my fault, but there is this thing where like I'm running to these meetings, to these lunches, to people who they don't even have a thought about the context that I'm in, or what, like Nehemiah, like who my heart is actually crying for. Like our walls broke down. You want me to come over to the palace and kick it with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm not mad at you about it because that's what rocks for your context. But like, you don't realize what's being lost when I leave out of it or whatever and stuff. And so over time, just to protect it, you end up starting to having to like put a little bit of a chip on your shoulder about it. And it's not looking to condemn anybody else for what they're doing. It's just that I can't give you my time to do it because like I've had to, it's not our fault. Like we can't save somebody's life, but we're like, yo, me being in this space, me being around for a conversation with a young man who's going to go kill somebody is important because I've literally stopped people from going to kill somebody, right? Yeah. Like, and like, so it's like you start to like our value here, not because we just like, it ain't no ego thing on our part. God saved us to stand in this space because people's lives are in the balance with what we preach, the encouragement. Even I go everywhere with my family. I go to art walks and festivals, even without my wife, with the kids 10 deep. Mm-hmm. Because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a husband. I just didn't know what it looked like.
Exactly.
And none of my friends had fathers. I was like, I don't even know what it looked like though. Yeah. Like, what does it look like? And so I get people all the time. They'd be like, bro, that joint is crazy to me. Like that you and your wife walk around with 10 babies and y'all be laughing. Like y'all be at a football game together? Yeah. Like you love your wife? That joint means something. And they may not understand it in their context, but I'm like, it means everything here. Like we're starving for it. And so we be having to protect that joint. And like, then what's grievous is that some of these people, some of the people I found out that I've had to separate myself from, I actually love them dearly. So there is grief in my heart. They may think I just on some new stuff and got a chip, but I'm like, you won't slow down enough to understand and dignify the angle I'm coming from. Yeah. And this is what's on the line for me, so I got to keep it moving and grooving.
It makes complete sense, bro.
Yeah.
Man, we probably going to talk for a lot more time, but I don't know how long people will listen, so we'll wrap up in a few minutes. But, man, one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to do this podcast is because we do want to bring encouragement to young pastors, planters, and maybe even not young, but like people who are just trying to figure out the space a little bit more. So if you had to wrap up, if you had anything to tell the next guy, like what is that, especially as it might relate to your story, like what would that be? What story would you share with that young person or that young guy?
Yeah. Or like specifically planters?
No, just
like just anybody or whatever.
It can be for planters, but just for anybody who might be thinking through, okay, what are my next steps? How do I, live this thing out? Any of that?
Yeah. I would say, number one, keep your foot in the streets and around real people. And this feels weird to say, and I hate to say this or whatever. Learn how to chew the meat and spit out the bones when it comes to church, when it comes to just religious organizations and everything else. like I completely encourage people to find a really, really good church.
Yeah.
But always remember you're dealing with humans.
Yeah.
You're dealing with humans or whatever. Your pastor's not, I'm not perfect at all or whatever and stuff. There's been a lot of things like I've tripped and there's trial and error. It's in the Bible too. Everybody we talk about as heroes and everything else or whatever, and they're a mess. We saved by grace. The story is not about us being perfect. We serve God and his son Jesus is the perfect sacrifice or whatever, and he's sanctifying us. So we're in a process. And a part of that process is what I would encourage people is that we get to actually repent. Yeah. And we bear fruit in our repentance. That's what I was saying earlier. That's what Paul is doing when he says, yo, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me? And he says, thanks be to Jesus. All in the same breath, I can be transparent about my shortcomings, and I can actually be thanking Jesus because it's already dealt with by the time I even finish the sentence.
Right.
And so live in that space, lavish people with it. You look inside of Hebrews 5, you see the high priest or whatever. It says the high priest is able to give love to the wayward and to the lost because he has to go give a sacrifice for himself before he gives sacrifice for all the other people. In other words, he's very intimate with his sin because back in the day they had to tie a rope around his waist because if you went in the Holy of Holies playing with God, he'd get drug out. So you think about what it was to go before God and the level of truthfulness he had to roll with, then think about the level of joy he rolled out with when he walked out.
Right.
It's the same for us. You get to go in, and God's mercy and grace covers you as you live in repentance. And when you walk out, that joint is done with or whatever. You are clean because of Jesus' blood. Bible says you walk in his light or whatever. So if you say you don't got sin, then you're a liar. You walk in the light, then you'll have fellowship in the blood of Jesus to take care of it. Live in that. Lavish other people with it. And God will guide and order your steps, you know what I mean? And if you find some good friends and homies and people along the way or whatever, stay close to them. Be encouraged. Learn how to be vulnerable in your life and tell the truth about what you feel, what you struggle with or whatever, because God is not here to condemn us. God is going to build you up. The more transparent you are, the faster you'll grow. Hiding your mess is going to do nothing but stagnate your growth. You know what I mean? So.
I love it. I love it. Hey, we got one.
Yeah.
We got one. This probably won't be the last one because, man, you right up the street. So
yeah, we're coming back.
We connect. I can't wait to get back up to Jack's. It's been a minute since I've been up your way. So, and we're going to hang out a little bit in about a month. Man, Jay is a friend, but he's also a part of a group of guys that's come together recently to, man, we just want to relate to one another well as we are planting churches and serving our communities, man. So you can expect a lot more from us. I won't even drop the name just yet, but y'all, hey, we got some stuff. I think all our cameras are shut off, but
did they just shut on?
The people can hear us via the podcast. Check out all of the content that we're putting out. Also follow Jay. What's your handles on everything?
Yeah, Jay, JAY_STRGHT ANDNRRW. So,
Jay straight and narrow.
_straight and narrow on Instagram. Jay Harris on Facebook. Follow DreamCrazyJits.com, EVACMovement.com, all of that stuff, whatever.
And follow Ville Church.
Ville Church, the Ville Church. The website's theville.church. Second Mile Ministries, another nonprofit I'm on the board for in Brentwood, doing amazing work. Follow them also.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for telling the story.
All right. Thug life. Love y'all.
The dream crazy to making, that's how I got change, got fame. Now I'm out copping my whole block change. My pain stuck in the NFT, see how art change. Our brains, now this is our lane and our thing. Smelly pots with jelly jars, the baking soda hard cane. Grew up in the trenches, the system pumped into our veins. Poison for my boys and my voice is now all the octane. Needed for my region to retreat up out that dark cave. Duval, since a jet, I dream crazy.